Walking with Dinosaurs 2025 is finally available in the United States. I know that there's already been a ton of other reviews of this because, of course, it's been out in the UK for over a month by this point. But I still do want to talk about it because I do have a lot of thoughts about the show. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, the main thing that I want to get out of the way that I'm sure many other people have already highlighted is that this is just Walking with Dinosaurs in name alone. It is quite a bit different from the original 1999 documentary, and that's mostly highlighted in its way that it presents its information. The original Walking with Dinosaurs had an emphasis on trying to make it seem like this was an actual nature documentary, like a camera crew went out and they simply just filmed these dinosaurs as they lived their lives. That was their approach. That was the way that they wanted you, that's the way that they wanted to educate you on these animals. The new Walking with Dinosaurs does have some of that, but it doesn't feel nearly as grounded. It doesn't feel like the camera crew simply caught what was happening. It felt like it was all staged events, if that makes sense, even though obviously the first one was staged events as well. But the original one, it felt like they simply just caught what happened, and it's hard to explain. On top of that, the new one, you only get about 5 minutes of dinosaur shenanigans before cutting to the modern day where they have paleontologists out digging in the field and they have them present some information about how we know certain things happened. And so basically the formula is 5 minutes of dinosaurs, then 5 minutes of paleontologists, then so on and so forth, and it keeps going on that little loop. That's a good approach, and I've seen some documentaries that have that approach, but the problem is that this is named Walking with Dinosaurs, and so I think that a lot of people were going into this fully expecting that they were going to get what the original Walking with Dinosaurs did. That is ultimately the biggest problem, is the fact that this is named Walking with Dinosaurs, and many people were expecting Walking with Dinosaurs while going into this, especially with the trailers that mostly focused on the CGI moments, obviously the moments with the dinosaurs, more so than the digging moments. There were some digging moments in the trailers, but they weren't the focus, of course. And that's purely marketing stuff. You don't really want, you want to show the awesome dinosaurs in your marketing more so than anything else. Again, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a great way to present the information. It's just, again, that it's the name that kind of brings that down a little bit, because it is a little bit disappointing when you're watching this and you're like getting into the story that they have with the dinosaur, and then it cuts to the modern day. Like all of a sudden you have like modern day footage of Montana as you're getting ready to watch Clover try to stand up to a T-Rex, I guess. That is my biggest problem with it, that that's the approach that they took when the name is Walking with Dinosaurs, but that's not a terrible approach. Again, that is a fine approach that, many different documentaries have different methods to help present the information, and that's simply just the method that they decided to use. So, it works. It's just, if it was named anything other than Walking with Dinosaurs, it would probably be rankings would probably be a little bit higher if it wasn't named Walking with Dinosaurs. After that, I want to talk about the CGI that was used in this, because there was always a lot of talk about the quality of the CGI. A lot of people think that it looks bad, and I still don't think that the CGI looks bad. It does not look the same as Prehistoric Planet. That is very much clear. Prehistoric Planet did have a larger budget than Walking with Dinosaurs, which is a bit unfortunate, but that's a different conversation entirely. I think that especially a project that's called Walking with Dinosaurs probably should be getting a bigger budget, but that's, there's a lot of working parts that many of us don't fully understand, myself included, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. I still think that the CGI looks good. I don't think I've seen way worse CGI than this. This is by no means bad CGI. It's just simply not as good as as Prehistoric Planet. Now, while I think that the CGI is good, the animation does kind of leave a lot to be desired. The animation is like the movements and stuff like that. A lot of times, the animations, they felt really stiff. Like, there was just a lot of animals just kind of standing around staring at each other, maybe growling or grunting every once in a while. And, there wasn't a lot of movement involved. They didn't really feel like actual animals moving around a lot of the time. It just felt very blocky, if that makes sense. So yeah, CGI looked good. Animations did leave a little bit to be desired, but it didn't really take me out of it. There was still a lot of really awesome moments that I will probably talk about in this next little section. So what are the awesome moments? There were a lot of really cool things that were highlighted here. I especially loved Sobek's episode, that being the Spinosaurus, which makes sense. I thought that episode was freaking awesome, and I'm probably going to make a whole video just talking about that episode alone, so I'm probably gonna leave a little bit out of this initial review. The rest of the episodes, they were pretty good as well. I did like, George's episode. He was the Gastonia against the Utah Raptors, which, by the way, Utah Raptor has never looked better on screen. These Utah Raptors looked incredible. The quality of the feathers looked great. Their whole bulk looked amazing, and their movements were pretty dang good as well. I loved the sharp, like the quick little movements that they had in their head, which was very bird-like. I absolutely loved that. I also really did like the amount of obscure dinosaurs that appeared in this. I always love when that happens. I love when obscure prehistoric animals show up because it gives the public a chance to learn a little bit more about many other animals that are not like the big ones that everybody knows about. That includes animals like, of course, Inferno Draken, even Torvosaurus, which not many people know about Torvosaurus, but we also had like a whole episode on Lusotitan, which is a brachiosaurid that's not too well known, and that was really cool. The Lusotitan episode was quite fun in a lot of ways. It was probably where some of the CGI looked the worst, like some of the Lusotitan's a lot of his CGI just kind of felt a little bit rubbery, but ultimately it still was pretty good. What I liked about it, though, like I mentioned before, was that Torvosaurus was present in that. I love that because I love Torvosaurus. It's easily my favorite megalosaurid. There was a cool little, I think, a little reference to the original Walking with Dinosaurs in that, though. When we're introduced to the Torvosaurus, there is a beached pliosaur that's dead, and the Torvosauruses are eating it. I think that's a reference to the fact that the Liopleurodon attacked a Eustreptospondylus in the original Walking with Dinosaurs. You know, this shot right here, this iconic shot. Now, I think that's a reference to that because Liopleurodon, it is a pliosaur, and what's washed up on the beach right here, I don't know which specific pliosaur it is, but it is a pliosaur as well. Now, Eustreptospondylus is also a megalosaurid, and Torvosaurus is a megalosaurid. I think this is like the megalosaurids getting their revenge. I think it's a reference to that. I could be wrong, but that's what I initially thought. You know, in the original Walking with Dinosaurs, you have a megalosaurid get killed by a pliosaur, or get eaten by a pliosaur. In the new Walking with Dinosaurs, you have a pliosaur getting eaten by megalosaurids. I'm just taking that as a reference, and I thought it was pretty funny. It was always amazing to see Torvosaurus. It looks great. Its model looks fantastic. This is probably the best that Torvosaurus has looked on screen as well. While I'm talking about that, we might as well get through that. I did like a lot of these dinosaur designs. These guys looked great. The Gastonia looked great. The Pachyrhinosaurus, they looked great. It looked like there was a lot of individual variation, which of course that was emphasized in the actual episode when they mentioned that the spikes on the frills are distinct from each other, which was really cool. The whole story of the Pachyrhinosaurus was also really great, leading to the eventual flood that led to the mass grave of like thousands of Pachyrhinosaurs that have been discovered in real life. And of course, you do notice that in the episode as they switch back and forth. The Edmontosaurus was not the best design. I did really like the Albertosaurus design. One unfortunate thing is that Gorgosaurus shows up in this, but it is just the Albertosaurus design. Which, again, that is a little bit unfortunate. It was likely done for budgetary reasons, but still, you know, it's kind of like when the Gorgosaurus showed up it was in the Pachyrhinosaurus episode. I'm like looking at him like, did Albertosaurus live with Pachyrhinosaurus lacustae? Because I couldn't remember. And then they said it was Gorgosaurus, and I'm still not entirely sure if Gorgosaurus lived with Pachyrhinosaurus, but I think that I did some digging into it, and I think that their territories did overlap a little bit, so it does make a little bit more sense. But it's just a bit unfortunate that it literally looks just like the Albertosaurus with the same coloration and everything, so it's not really distinct from that. And again, I think that is a bit unfortunate because, you know, they're two entirely different Tyrannosaurids, so it would have been great to see some distinction between them, at the very least, a different coloration. The T-Rex looked really good in this as well, the Tyrannosaurus. It had a lot of scarring on it. It had a lot of bulk. This is probably one of my favorite Tyrannosaurus designs that we've ever seen. The Triceratops looked really cool with an interesting aspect of it flushing blood to its frill. I don't know how likely that is, but it certainly was really interesting to see, you know, giving it some bright coloration. Oh, and, you know, I'm not going to talk too much about Sobek, but the, Sobek's episode, but the Spinosaurus, beautiful. The Carcharodontosaurus, gorgeous. That episode was fantastic. I do have some gripes with it, but again, I'm not going to talk about that until I make the specific episode for that because I just have so much to say about that episode alone, mostly because I'm biased towards my favorite dinosaur, but I think that that deserves its own episode. So certainly keep an eye out for that. But yeah, that's pretty much my overall thoughts of Walking with Dinosaurs. It is a good documentary that offers a lot of really good information and offers a lot of intrigue about these long extinct animals. It's just, I think that it being named Walking with Dinosaurs and kind of being promoted as the successor to the original Walking with Dinosaurs kind of hurt it. You know, everybody was expecting Walking with Dinosaurs when going into this, myself included. And then when you're watching the first episode and you get to that first cut, like when you realize that, oh, this is going to be one of those documentaries where you cut to the modern day and the past, you kind of gets brought down a few tiers, which that is unfortunate. That is mostly because we were going into this expecting Walking with Dinosaurs, and it is a different formula entirely. Still, again, I want to emphasize it's not a bad formula. It's a good way to present some information. Showing the actual paleontology at work is a fantastic way to teach everybody how we reach some of the conclusions that we do reach. So I do like that method. It's just, again, that name just really, kind of hurts it in that aspect. But I did like the documentary. I thought it was really great. I had a lot of fun watching it. Again, a lot of really cool moments, just some things that were a little bit lacking. A lot of those were probably because of budgetary reasons, and some of those were just because of the formula. Be sure to let me know what you guys thought of this documentary down below. I would love to hear your thoughts. And yeah, be sure to keep an eye out for Sobek's episode. I'm going to be talking about Sobek's episode in depth because, again, I do have a lot to say about that episode specifically. Mostly good things. Mostly good things. I will prepare you for that. It's mostly good things. But some things that kind of bugged me a little bit. But yeah, be sure, if you like dinosaur related content, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you on board. Thank you so much to all my patrons and my channel members. You guys are truly helping out tremendously. And yeah, until next time, have an awesome day.